Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, welcome back to the GYLD 2023 Annual Forum. So welcome you to join the Plenary II and centered around the topic, how to create a city friendly to the youth development. Today, we are embarking on the insightful journey that seeks to eliminate innovative pathways, share enlightening perspectives, and ignite meaningful dialogue that will shape the future of our city and the generation to come. I'm Li Jing, the Executive Director of Global Talent Institute and the Secretary General of Global Youth SDG Conference. So to set the stage for this enriching explanation, it is my privilege to introduce our distinguished keynote speakers. Firstly, please allow me to invite Mr. Shen Xin, the Director General of Department of American and Oceania Affairs, Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries, to share his visionary thoughts on crafting cities that nurture the growth of the young people. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy to be here to share some ideas on how to conduct, youth exchange between China and other countries of the world. I was not told that actually I should speak in English, so I prepare my speech in Chinese. I have to travel the translator to turn to English. 女士们、先生们、朋友们，非常高兴应邀出席。
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to attend the GYLD 2023 Annual Forum to share some of my observations. I'm from the CPA-FFC. It was established in 1954. It is about to have its 70th anniversary. It is responsible for carrying out exchanges with all countries at the non-governmental level and at the subnational level. An important part of the job is to promote and coordinate the provincial partnerships between China and other countries. And on the basis of that, we also carry out comprehensive all-dimensional cooperation projects. Now, China has established diplomatic relations with over 145 countries. Not diplomatic relations, rather it is sister cities or provinces that has laid a solid foundation for reform and opening up. It has also come a long way to promoting the friendly and mutual understanding between the Chinese youth and young people of other countries by creating a lot of channels. For example, in Shanghai, starting from 2009, every year it had a youth summer camp of international friendly cities, and now 13 such programs have been carried out. Now, over 1,400 students and teachers have been involved in this program from over 40 countries, and over 170 middle school students from Shanghai have also been involved in the summer camps, and they also serve as volunteers. And in 2 weeks, every year, the Chinese and foreign participants are working together in such rich activities. And starting from 2009, Chengdu also upheld the annual Youth Music Festival. Every year, they invite young musicians from the 107 sister cities to come to Chengdu for performances. Just last week, the 2023 festival was held in Chengdu. Representatives from Asia, Europe, America, Oceania, and Africa are involved, and altogether 90 musical bands, and they have staged over a dozen of performances in Chengdu. They are deeply popular. Ladies and gentlemen, the young people have an important role to play in people-to-people exchanges. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, the young people take up a large part of the foreign friends who visit China. For example, Chairman Mao Zedong and Premier Zhou Enlai also met with the visiting foreign young representatives from other countries. In the 1950s, Chairman met with the youth delegations from Asia, Latin America, and Africa to share China's experiences in development and revolution. And in 1958, in meeting with the African youth delegation, Chairman Mao Zedong said candidly that when you do things, you need to act on the basis of your national realities. A nation always has its own history and environment. We have taken a bitter lesson. So we have learned that the truth of Marxism is always there and it is to be trusted, but it should be put in the context of the Chinese Revolution. And when we combine them together, it will work and we will win. The young people have also played an important role in the normalization of ties between China and Japan and between China and the United States. In 1965, before China and Japan normalized its ties, China held cooperation programs with a number of non-governmental organizations of Japan, and they held parties in Beijing. Over 450 Japanese young people were involved, and many of them have become leaders of China-Japanese ties. And in 1984, the second such activity was held, and now the new round of Chinese-Japanese young people exchange activities are also rolling out. In 1971, because of the two ping pong athletes between China and the United States, the U.S. ping pong team visited China as a result, and then we opened the ice-breaking age of China-U.S. ties. At that time, the visiting ping pong team of the United States also got the opportunity to meet with Premier Zhou, and they had vivid exchanges. And the athlete Kohn asked Premier Zhou about his view on hippies of the United States. He said that probably the young people are not satisfied with the current world. They want to seek truth, and they are showing different forms to express their ideas, but their forms of expression are not necessarily fixed. And they need to prove whether the practice is right or not. But for the young people, it is allowable. And when we were young, that was also the case for us. So we know the mentality of the young people. They are curious. And according to history, the commonality of truth will one day be recognized by people. We trust that the young people have the demand for exploring, and they need to know the knowledge through practices, but we need to find the commonality of the truth, and then we will contribute to the progress of humanity and the happiness of humanity. And actually, Premier Zhou's remarks inspired the athlete and his family. And his family also heard these remarks of Premier Zhou on TV. And he also asked somebody to buy a bouquet of flowers in Hong Kong to send to Premier Zhou. And then youth exchanges have also received a high level of attention since then. And in 2001, when our president visited the United States, he had exchanges with the local students. He said that China and the United States need to work together when we young people exchange. And President Xi also replied to the letter of a student of North Illinois, and he said that we hope that the students of the United States will work harder to contribute to the relationship between the two countries because the young are the future. And President Xi also replied to the Japanese friendly group saying that the future of China-Japan ties are in the hands of the young people too. In 2021, President Xi, when replying to the letter of the foreign students in Peking, saying that we hope that the foreign students can see more of China so that they will know better about China, and then you will tell what you feel like about China to other people, and then you will play a very good role in promoting mutual understanding. Also in August of that year, President Xi wrote a reply letter to the GYLD saying that we welcome more foreign young people to engage in such exchanges so that we can grow friendship and contribute to the building of a community of shared future. In 2022, in June that year, President Xi replied to a letter of an African planning workshop saying that we hope that the young people will use their strength and their ambition to contribute to Chinese and African revitalization. In December in 2022, President Xi also replied to Saudi Arabia representative saying that they need to make greater contribution to the friendship between the two sides. This year, President Xi also replied to Hungarian students and also the overseas students in Nanking University.
This showed that President Xi Jinping has a firm commitment to exchanges between the youth. Ladies and gentlemen, the youth exchange is of vital importance. That said, we are now faced with a severe international environment. COVID-19 in the past 3 years has hindered the exchanges between the Chinese people and between China and other countries, especially between China and the US and the Western countries. If there is no further exchange, the future will be undermined. As you may know about the relationship between China and the US and the Western countries, the favorable opinion of China in Western countries has been on the decline. In 2019, the favorable opinion rate was 19% to 10%. And in the US, the favorable rate dropped from 33% to 26%. To reverse the decline and to restore the favorable opinion of the Western people towards China, youth exchange is very important. In the years past, the young people have the most favorable opinions towards China. According to the Pew poll, in the US, in the UK, and in France, for the young people aged between 18 and 29, despite the decline, the young people hold the most favorable opinion towards China, and a similar trend is found in the UK and in France. In 2022, among the American young people, in their debate about the importance of China-US relationship and the importance of politicians' visit to Taiwan, most of them believe that China-US relationship is more important. On some specific issues, a common understanding is there between the young people. For example, the young people are all concerned about house mortgage, job prospects, equality, fairness, and climate change. So there is a foundation and there's a need for youth exchange. When President Obama was in office, there was a 10,000 strong initiative to encourage more Chinese American people to study in the U.S. At the height, more than 30,000 American people study in the U.S. But in the past several years, especially because of COVID and because tensions between China and U.S., there has been a sharp decline in the number of American students in the U.S. It is said that there are only about 300 American students in China, but I believe the real figure is higher than that. And then because of limited flights, visa procedures, etc., there has been a limited number of American students studying in China. As far as I know, countries around the world are positive about youth exchange. They don't want to see the decline or the fall in youth exchange. American diplomat who I know told me that when he was young, he studied in the US, in China. He was interested very much in China-US relations. That's why he became a diplomat and he worked in China for 3 times. He believed that the youth exchange, youth dialogue is important for China-US relationship. If there is a gap, there is a fault line in American perception towards China, then the consequences will be dire. The youth is an important period for people, and the cities provide the most favorable conditions for young people to make friends. Our association is committed to building sister city relationships. We have invited people around the world to China to break through the information cocoons and ideological bias for them to know what is really happening in China. Not long ago, we had the Cooling China-US forum. In his address to the forum, he said that the May China-US relationship is as strong as green as the pine trees on the Guilin. Starting from next year, every year we will have a China-US Youth Forum. We're also organizing programs of China-Japan young people and to continue the tradition of youth exchange that were held in the 1980s. In Europe, in Latin America, we are also organizing youth exchange programs. We are also working with all parties, including the CCG. We invite ideas and suggestions from our friends for us to think out of the box to open up more channels for youth exchange. Our purpose is to let people from all countries find the biggest denominator in this complicated world so that they can play an important role and make important contribution to the world. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shen, for his speech.
CPA, FFC, what they did and what they will do and what you will do in the future. And also you provide more information about young people, how they did in the past and what they can do in the future to promote our relationship, friendship in the future. So thank you very much for your insightful keynote speech. And next, joining us as our second keynote speaker is Mr. Wu Qing, professor at the China Youth University of Political Study. Director of Research Institute of Communist Youth League, Director of the Youth Movement Research Center. Welcome. The floor is yours.
很高兴今天下午这个机会。
I'm very glad to talk to you this afternoon. My research interest is youth movement, youth movements both in China and in other countries, and also political parties. My research also covers the Association of Students in China and also the Youth League. I have several thoughts to share with you. First, for cities to grow, young people need to grow. So people born in the 1980s, in the 1990s, and in 2000s, they have a higher demand for development, especially in cities. They want to have a better quality of life in cities. In the research covering the young people born in 1990s and 2000s, they have different views. For example, in China, there are many students returning from overseas studies. Starting from last year, more students returned to China after finishing their studies abroad than those who stayed abroad. I believe for cities to development, we must have good conditions for the youth to grow and develop. That is important research at different levels, including material level, cultural level. The CPC has been committed to the development of youth. In 2015, a long-term plan was introduced for youth development, and more than 50 government departments were involved in this long-term plan. And the work has been carried out across the country. Second, to build youth-friendly cities, we must build leading cities. By youth-friendly, I also mean that international youth-friendly. In Beijing, we see many slogans. There are the values of China, and that is an important way to promote China's socialist values. If we look far into 2049, in China, apart from Beijing, cities across China need to increase their capacity for international development. And we must aim for better inclusiveness. This is an important research interest. There have been many dialogues between China and other countries on this topic. I can give you an example. Starting from 1994, the Communist Youth League has organized voluntary organizations which have played a very important role in China and other countries. The voluntary services now cover many areas and age groups, including the older people. The political party in China has opened up and has used volunteers to help with city management. And this morning, there were also remarks about youth volunteers. And volunteers can lead in social services. For example, in the Beijing Olympics, Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics, Beijing is the only city in the world that hosts both the Summer and Winter Olympics. So for Beijing to grow, to develop, we must have international young people stay in China and in Beijing. We must let the Chinese youth develop themselves. That is my second point. My third point, my third thought, we must build cities that can mobilize and organize young people in common endeavors. This morning, there were also speeches about organizing students. This is very important. People have talked a lot about the power of youth. What is the advantage of the young people compared with older people? If you want to organize them together, you must have a deep understanding and analysis of the young people. Another thing is that the young people has the most power. In Beijing in the 1950s, and there were youth teams for breakthroughs to encourage young workers to exert their utmost in production. And young people are also creative. So for innovation, we must rely on young innovators. Third, young people have a great ambition, and today is also the UN Youth Day, and the topic of this year's Youth Day is green skills. In China, in Chinese cities, in Peking University, in Tsinghua University, for example, and there are organizations, student organizations on the environment.
We want a more harmonious society. I believe those young people have greater capabilities to do that. And fourth, the young people are more easily organized to run bigger youth organizations. It's an important tool in this process. For example, in Beijing, we have the Youth League or some other organizations, and we also have the non-governmental organizations or social organizations for the young people. So we need to have more such organizations so that the young people's advantages can be leveraged, and then they will play their due role. President Xi also said that the young people are the pioneers of Chinese rejuvenization. So pioneers. So the world's development also depends on the pioneering role of the young people too. We also need to foster more young leaders. I think the CCG is now organizing this GYLD annual forum. I think it is highly relevant. We want to create and foster more young leaders, and we want more exchanges between the young people all over the world. And fourth, we need to create cities that can provide better services. Different countries have different realities. They serve different peoples. For example, in China, our focuses of services include to provide better services for university graduates in their job seeking. This is on top of the government agenda. That is an important service we need to provide. And second, the young people are also paying much attention to housing. I don't know what is your case in your own countries for the young people. Anyway, in Beijing, in China, it is very expensive to buy a house here in Beijing for the young people. And now we know that the Youth League is organizing a program through which the young people can have 7 days free of charge to find a house. And also, I want to talk about love and marriage. We know that the people who are born in the 1990s and 2000, they have absorbed all kinds of philosophies of marriage and love. And we know that a lot of the young people do not want to go into marriage because they prefer freedom. So I think they are much influenced by such ideas. That is why the traditional idea of traditional families are challenged. So the government is really anxious. And according to the UN data, the young people are accounting for a higher share of the global population. But in China, it is different. China is aging. We encourage more young people to give birth to more children. And also, with the aging in China, there is a problem of old age support. You know, by 2040, China will become older and older. We have a lot more old people to support. So now we need to ensure that the fewer and fewer young people will live in harmony with the more and more old people in China. That is the Chinese case. And also the education of the children is also an important topic. So we need to serve the young people and serve the old people and build a good ecosystem. And last but not least, we need to provide theoretical support for global youth development. I think today, not many university professors are here. Actually, I think we need academic support from universities on this topic. This discourse system is very important. I think the academic systems between China and the Western world are different. But at least what we can do is to ensure that we will have a good people who can carry on the torches. And we have a lot of pioneers. You know, the young people are the pioneers of our society. That is true for all societies. And we also have the global common values. Those are also something that we can work together on. And we can look at the contemporary history of China. Li Dazhao once said that all of the people need to create youth, the youth of universe, the youth of the universe, the youth of the nation. So we believe the world is full of vitality. The young people are full of vitality, and the old people should also be full of vitality. The whole world should maintain the status of working hard and also with great ambitions. And then we will build a world full of youth and dynamism. And those are the points that I want to make about creating a youth-friendly city environment. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Wu, for your keynote remarks.
Your ideas about your research and the practice, what the cities do to becoming a youth-friendly city. So very insightful. And as we eagerly listen to your words of wisdom, we can deeply understand that the path to the youth-friendly cities requires is not just a vision, but actionable strategies. So thank you again. Okay, let's go to the next part. It's a panel discussion and promotes to the both enlightening and thought-provoking. Our panelists are experts from diverse backgrounds. Each brings unique insights to the table. Together, they will explore the multifaceted aspects that contribute to the thriving environment for our youth. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists, Joshua Domitic, founder and organizer of Cranking Through China, Feng Yuepeng, chairman of Guozun Yidian Center Strategy Committee, head of Guozun Law Firm, And Odukan Garamazet designate chairperson of non-aligned movement youth organization, secretary general of National Student Union of Zambia, and the national program director of Enactus Zambia, and Victor Cole, assistant researcher director, head of education and youth research of our Hong Kong Foundation, and Zheng Jinlian, CCG vice president, head of research, senior fellow. And Odukan and Victor will join us online. So welcome again. Okay, I think Victor is already online. Hi, Victor. Can you hear us clearly? Hi, hi. Okay. Good. And I think maybe there's something wrong with Oduhan, and I think he's some problem with the network, so we will wait him later. And let me start our panel discussion. And the youth are held as the cornerstone of the nation's future. So carrying the aspiration, dreams, and the potentials to shape the trajectory of society. Nowadays, the quest of sustainable urban development, cities worldwide increasing acknowledging the pivotal roles that young professionals plays in the urban construction process. So when I received this topic, it triggered me a lot of thoughts. We're living in the cities every day, but what exactly defines a youth-friendly city? So my first question to you all is, what are the key elements and characteristic of the city friendly or youth development? And how do they contribute to the overall well-being and the growth of youth individuals to name them youth-friendly city? So we can start as Josh.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you everybody for being here for this panel today. It's an honor for me to speak at these panels because it gives me an opportunity to talk about my experiences in Beijing as a resident here for 20 years and seeing the city as it's changed and developed into a more open, more embracing city for a number of communities and a number of groups. Just to make a short introduction, I'm the founder of Peking Through China, which works with a disadvantaged group of people with disabilities, mainly people who use wheelchairs. So the topic or the word that I would like to focus on today is one that we use a lot in my work, is accessibility. Now, when we talk about people with disabilities or certain physical limitations, that means elevators, ramps, things like that. But I think accessibility in a wider sense is actually how people interact with a city, with a community, and with industry on a whole. So when we talk about young people, I think especially international young people coming to a city like Beijing, how we make it friendly for them is a very complicated question and involves many, many different elements. I think that for me as a long-term resident, and I'm on the edge of not being young anymore, so I think that Beijing, one, is a very open city to begin with. The society, the city itself lends itself to being very open to new visitors, new residents. So I think that's one thing that Beijing has going for it. However, I think that one thing that a city like Beijing or any city can do is to make it more accessible on a number of levels. So for me, making Beijing more international, which a lot of work has been done in an area which a lot of work has been done, is important. Making people feel at home. I remember recently visiting with the Maizedian Community Office. And the work that they're doing to reach out to local international residents is very good. Making them feel welcome in a new place. It's very important for international youth coming to Beijing. I think another area is lending a certain amount of the ability to drive one's future. I'm thinking of the Chinese right now. 这个主导权就是 if you can control your future, your destiny, that's a very powerful thing for youth. And I think sometimes it's difficult for older generations, whether it's our parents or whether it's people that are already in charge, to give that space and that ability for young people to decide their own future. But I think that's one key element in making a city more youth friendly, because that gives them the space and the time and the ability to shape how that city goes forward and how things are developed. I think it was Mr. Wu Qing that was talking about young people not really wanting to have children nowadays, or choosing different directions professionally or otherwise. And I think while we cling to traditional concepts, maybe, just maybe, and I think we had the Japanese architect that was speaking earlier, the way that people live is changing, whether it's in cubicles or in traditional home elements. It really depends on what young people want. And we can suggest what young people should be like, or how they should live, or how they should see their future. But ultimately, we need to let them decide. So I think, to come back to my 2 points, one is accessibility, making them feel that this is a place where I can live, that it's some place that I can feel my future lies. The second is having a sense of decision-making power to decide one's future and go forward as they see fit. So I think those are my 2 suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Josh. And next, let's invite Mr. Feng.
好，谢谢主持人啊。
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just now, I listened to the 2 keynote speakers. I learned a lot from their presentations. I think there are several parameters for a youth-friendly cities. First, at the strategic level, the government must have a long-term vision. Usually, a government serves a term of 5 years. But sometimes the leader may come out of office after 2 or 3 years. So for them, they may not make a short-term decision, but a long-term strategy is very important. For youth development is quite different than previously. Take Pony Ma, Jack Ma, for example, and they became world-renowned entrepreneurs at the age of 40 or 50. But now, for successful entrepreneurs, they are usually below the age of 40. For example, Zhang Yiming, TikTok CEO, Meituan of Wang Xing of Meituan is 39. Was born in 1979, and Cheng Wei was born in 1983. If the government does not see the young people from a strategic perspective, if you do not pay enough attention to the young people, then they will find hard to get close to them after they become successful. And secondly, a city must be helpful for young people to settle in. When young people come to a city, the government must do a lot in both software and hardware for the young people to settle in the city. Professor Wu said in his presentation that they must, and professors should provide theoretical support for young people. As a lawyer, I want to say that we need to provide legal support for the young people. The third point is that respect to the young people. Young people now have a different way of life. When we start a business, we always think that it is natural to work overtime. In our law firm, most of our staff are young people. For the older generation, we may often tell the young people that it is only natural to work overtime. We did this. For people born in the 1990s, we see that they do not necessarily follow the orders of the bosses. I think these are the three indicators or parameters for a youth-friendly city. Thank you, Yue-Ping. I can relate to what you said. A mayor of a city once said that I may only serve for a couple of years, but if I can make a long-term plan for the city, then my legacy will live on. Now I'll give the floor to Dr. Zheng. I believe a youth-friendly city should be first and foremost open. Young people love diversity, and the young people now live in a different society. Being open means that welcoming people from different countries, different regions, and different backgrounds. You should be able to bring together young people from different backgrounds. Second, inclusive. The city must be inclusive. For example, Beijing, Shenzhen, and Chengdu, where the university games were held. Those cities are inclusive ones. Professor Wu and the previous two panelists all said that the young people now have a different way of life and work, and they have a different mode of work. According to our research, now there are different kinds of different forms of work, different models of work, which can be inclusive to the young people. Third, a youth-friendly city should be innovative or should have an environment for innovation. Being open and inclusive means that a city can also encourage innovation, encourage the young people to fulfill their potential. I believe these three characters are very important for a youth-friendly city. Victor, 你来谈谈你自己的观点吧。
Chinese or English? Both. Okay. It really depends on you.
So I'll just give it in English then. Just to make a short introduction. So I work in a Hong Kong foundation that is a public policy think tank in Hong Kong. So throughout our research, we do have some observations in Hong Kong, but we think that these are not particularly, just specifically applying to Hong Kong, but it's really more of a global phenomenon. So in terms of how to build a youth development friendly city, I think three opinions or three comments that I would like to share. Number one is about how we build diverse education pathways to support youth with various abilities and interests. So we do have a local Hong Kong where we have a in the education system and with the industrial development, etc. in Hong Kong. So the traditional Hong Kong have basically vanished. Everybody is left with one fairly academic pathway for development, especially in secondary school. Kids want have only one choice, no matter they are suited to the traditional academic pathway or not. Parents push their kids complete the degree, obviously, in mainland China, that's me, right? And then they go to master degrees and all in order to land a good job. But not every is crafted for the practice. So we are looking at policy research efforts are really focused on that for students with a more technical skill set, and also corresponding to the new industry development. Need labor or labor force manpower capable of doing more academic or research work, but instead really focus on the applied skill set. So that is a big part of the effort. For example, some more technical degrees, University of Science in Europe, and thinking of how we model that in Hong Kong and to foster that diverse pathways. So that's number one. Number two is about school industry partnerships, because especially with the pandemic, we're seeing a huge gap between employers and the employers in particular. So how to strengthen the school industry collaboration territory-wide, we merge the skills training and the academic training, and to group labor that are workplace in general. Thirdly, it's about industry development, because we talk about emerging new trends and new industries, right? For example, we talk about the 8 centers, not just traditional logistics, but also innovation and technology, but also cultural exchange, new industries that are totally different skills that compared to what we see in the past. So how do we from a high level governance planning perspective, all the way from human resource planning, linking the government planning from economic, how much manpower you need, what specific jobs and roles that are required, and boils down to what are the specific that needs to be incorporated into existing school curriculum. So these are things that we're looking at. The other way is also the culture of continuation, because we are talking about reskilling and upskilling existing labor as well, because in Hong Kong you might Northern Marshall Islands, etc. These are sort of big, large scale developments that are critical for new industry. How do we the land and how do we industry, how they can come together actually come up with programs that are suited to development in the longer term. So I think these are just 3 quick pointers to come up with, but happy to further elaborate in our later discussion.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, it's very insightful and from all of you. And actually, Mr. Professor Wu, he gave us the keynote speech related to the employment. So I would like to talk more details about the different sector of the youth-friendly cities. So we will focus on the education part, employment part, the policy part, and the role of the youth. So firstly, I would like to invite Victor again, and I know you are doing the student work, and you are very professional in this area. So the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres often emphasized that the education inequality leads to significant disparities in the youth development worldwide. So I would like to consult with you who are closely related to the students and education, and how can cities ensure equity access to the quality education and the skill development opportunities for the young talents?
Actually, when just the word accessibility, it does ring a bell, because the way we understand accessibility, a lot because 50 or even 30 years ago, when we talk about accessibility, about equity in education, about literacy, we're talking about people without access to basic education.
How can we make sure that they know how to read and write
And all that.
you know, in today's context, when we look at the word accessibility, we feel we are talking about a slightly different thing because
You can see it's becoming a more world problem.
Accessibility is more about can people with different skills and talents access that
Education opportunity is suited
or her
for development.
So
We are talking about, for example, the more local context in Hong Kong is, we have a 6-year secondary school.
We used to have 7 years, where we have
Two public exams. Now we have one.
So when we used to have 2 public exams, the first exam served as sort of a natural selection kind of mechanism where people would basically drop out after the public exam and go to a more vocational route if they are not suited to academic studies. Now we don't have that route anymore. So the government has been trying to build in a more so-called applied education sort of pathway where you have some more diverse subjects that is being introduced into the new senior secondary
curriculum. For all our technology to stuff like that. But we have a lot of issues
coming out from
that two of them, number one, schools are unable to handle that sort of
having that
subject in the school. Number two is
even if you have that subject, in university admission, people still look at how you are performing in the traditional subjects, right? Languages, math, physics, chemistry, biology, those sort of traditional kind of subjects, rather than the more technical or more applied skills that are often more sought after in a workplace. So it's more a systemic issue that is not just you can tackle it with one curriculum or one course alone, but you have to expand the lens to look at a more systemic issue from, for example, senior secondary to university admission, to what they are actually studying in the university, to go up and beyond. So I think that
accessibility is something that government has a role.
They need to ensure that people with different talents are not so-called wasted in the society, and they have a appropriate course and development to move on with their life and stuff. But it's also about further curriculum development and job opportunities, because it's also about getting employers to understand that now we live in a more and more increasingly skill-based kind of economy where we no longer look for people look for all the way from technical skills to critical thinking skills, but not the traditional sort of academic the traditional academic ability. So the calculus have changed, and the employers also need to recognize that fact, and therefore to cause that ecosystem change and interaction between school, employers, and the government and youth.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, you just mentioned a lot about
the government and the universities can do in the future for the youth generation. And let's move to the next one. It's about the employment. 我知道就是 CCG
I know that CCG has just recently released a study on the jobs of the new young generation. With the changing society, there have also been revolutionary changes to jobs. So the development of new jobs have received much public attention. So, Mr. Zheng, I want to know, in your research, have you found any changes in the young people's jobs and in the city development? Have you found some support policies for such changes, and what the young people can do to face up to such challenges? In our recently released report, we have the following important points. First, to establish a youth-friendly society will provide a lot of opportunities for the growth and development of the young people. We know that the rapid digital transformation of cities and economies, there are new changes in social demands, and there are also new jobs that have emerged. So that has created a lot of good opportunities for the employment of the young people. And we know that a lot of the young people are just the occupiers of such new jobs from the experiences of the past few years. We can see the emergence of a lot of new jobs, for example, carbon emissions managers or caretakers, etc. And now we have a gap of 120 million people for such new jobs, and most of the gaps are filled by the young people, actually. We have surveyed over 4,000 young groups, and we have found that the 7.4% of the surveyed people are paying for the learning of new skills by paying over 2,000 yuan. So they pay much attention to the learning of new knowledge, but at the same time, they are also facing new challenges. For example, they will have to contribute to 45% of social insurance, but a lot of them do not pay for social insurance at all. And they also reflected some services for the young people. And in April this year, 17 departments issued the opinions for the pilot cities for the young people. It says that we need to improve the job creation environment for the young people, provide better public services, and create more vocational training for the young people. That can address a lot of the core challenges faced by the young people. That will also provide a good guarantee for the future growth of the young people. And second, I want to say that the young people can contribute to better sustainable development of cities. Take, for example, we have the new job takers and new jobs. Actually, they are born with the emergence of new cities. For example, the internet shopping masters, and in the future, there will be a demand for over 40 such jobs in the future. And also carbon emissions managers, and we have a lot of demand for that. And also health managers for the old age people and the disabled people. This is an important way to address the challenge of aging. So different cities have led to the emergence of such jobs with their own development. And at the same time, The young people are constantly changing the traditional patterns of employment while practicing in cities. For example, the virtual engineers actually only 30% are actually employed in such jobs through formal ways. And they are adopting more and more flexible means of employment. It reflects the difficulty of finding jobs. It also reflects the demand of the young people for freedom and for a new way of consumption. It will also promote the changes of labor relations in the industrialized era. And the jobs will become more flexible, and there will be more mixed jobs and mixed work. And there will be a change of the traditional boundaries between life and work and study. And another thing I want to say is that we need to encourage the young people to participate in city governance more. We know that the young people's employment are more flexible and they are paying more attention to the virtual world. They're different from the traditional groups of people. They may not have more channels to be in contact with society, and there is also a lack of channels for the rest of society to come close to the young people. So we need to do more to encourage the young people to participate in city governance, and we can also build more platforms like we have today to promote exchanges between the young people and other groups of people. And then we will be more inclusive to the young people in different jobs and different sectors. Thank you. Actually, the new jobs are developing for the young people. We are really seeing new changes because the new lifestyles are also emerging with the new jobs. The young people need to find their own way of living in the new cities, and they need to find their own new ways of work in the new cities. So that reflects the innovation of our society. At the same time, we need more space for the young generation so that they can enjoy better development. And now I think we can come to another topic, that is at the policy level. Mr. Feng is not just a lawyer, he is also deputy of the People's Congress of Chaoyang District. I think in your work, you have found a lot of new challenges and new demands. For example, in providing legal services, you will also meet a lot of people who need legal services and assistance. From your experience, how do you see the current policies and decision making, and how to involve more young people in decision making? I know that as a deputy of the People's Congress, you have already proposed a lot of good suggestions. So what are your suggestions and proposals? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think from the legal perspective, I would like to say something about how to maintain policy stability so that the young people will make a good contribution and take an active part in this whole process. You know, today we have a platform of international youth exchanges. So the young people are not localized, they are internationalized. So they will bring new changes in our mentality, and we will attract more young people from the rest of the world. I think in terms of policy and legal levels, we need to ensure that our laws are clear and transparent. And second, we need to ensure that the policies and the laws are replicable. First, they need to be clear. Why I say this? You know, in the flow of international talents, different countries have their own cultures, systems, and laws. In this country, something is legal, but in another country, probably it is illegal. So when we build a youth-friendly city, we need to ensure that the laws and policies are clear. When the young talents come to this city and to this country, we need to tell them clearly what cities and what countries we are, and what things are allowed, what things are not acceptable. It should be very clear. It's easier said than done, actually, because we do not have a good mechanisms to pass the message to them. You cannot urge each and every visitor to first learn your laws. You don't know how to start learning the laws, and you don't know where to learn the laws. Probably you know you have very good translation software. Probably you don't know where to learn. So first, we need to ensure that the laws and policies are clear. That is the first thing. Second, the laws and policies need to be transparent. We know that each country has our own political and legal system. Some of the countries are based on different legal systems. For example, the discretion power may differ in different countries. For the lawyers, sometimes we are facing difficulties. Sometimes this case should be some case we need to win, but finally it turned out to be a failure. It is difficult for us to interpret it. So we need to ensure that the laws and the policies are transparent. All governments need to work hard on it. For example, we have been doing a lot of legal interpretations at the level of the Supreme Court. So through such interpretation, we will tell the people how we understand these laws, and gradually the people will follow your interpretations of the law when dealing with the cases. So you need to give the people the sense of security when those people come to your city or your country. So when I am doing this thing, I first need to think about the bottom line. And the first thing we should not think is not about what benefits we can bring. Rather, we need first to know the consequences and bottom line. That is the first thing we need to know. And third, the laws and policies need to be replicable.
Means that this can be replicated in other countries. So a sense of security and replicability are important for a city. As for how the young people can be involved in decision making, this should also be considered by the government. The government should give the young people opportunities. Why is this important? Different countries have different definitions about young people. The Chinese standard is the age below 45, but the UN standard is the age of below 60. For me, when my age exceeds 40, I feel bad to still call myself a young person. So for the government, you must give the young people the channels. You must give people an opportunity. The political work I take is overseas Chinese. I'm also a member of the political consultative conference. And in that capacity, I make proposals, policy proposals to the government. In the political consultative conference, there are different circles in terms of professions. So the government needs to guide the young people, helping them to find the right path and they can take. In terms of government decision making, I spent 2 years in the UK. My law firm specializes in international cases. My law firm is a law one. Our revenue is about 500 million a year. So in the circle of overseas Chinese, I can leverage my strengths. I can find my own path to make my voice heard by others, by the government.
There's a project called the Model Political Consultative Conference in Beijing, and it's opened for the youth, for the young people. And I think some days ago, they visited the CCG and to have a very good communication with them. So I think the government should give more guide to the young people how they can provide their opinions to improve the policies and how they can act a better roles to the society. And next, it's about the role of youth. So actually, Mr. Feng just mentioned some part of the role of youth. And Josh, I know you did a very valuable project. It's focused on the people who's disabled, and a lot of volunteers. They are also the young people. So I would like to know how can the young individuals better practice in the cities and the communities, and how can they more effectively discover and realize their personal value. I know in the developed countries, a lot of young people keep very close to the society and to make them valuable to the society. So what the young people in China or maybe in the city use friendly cities the young people can do?
Sure. I think one of the most valuable things that young people have is passion. They aren't jaded by experience. They aren't burdened by job experience or maybe tenure or some sort of other pressure that they have to keep on going and stay in the place where they are. They're experimenting all the time. And I think that in society, young people often participate in volunteer activities or certain social causes and push forward what they feel is their ideal. So if they see a problem, and this was my experience when I was young, my parents always said, one of the most important things you can do is see a problem and try and solve it. Try and solve it together with other people. Of course, we need guidance from, government, from our Zhangbei, our other, people who are professionals in their fields as young people, because we need to learn. But I think that passion is something that drives change. And makes cities better. So to be a youth development friendly city, I think that we really need to encourage that passion and have the channels and the space, as you say, to let young people go forward in that. I think on the social level, so whether it's nonprofit organizations or social committees or some other channel or platform that young people have access to, those need to be supported and developed further. This is the way that young people can participate in their city in the way that changes are happening. I also want to make a plug for what you mentioned before about people with disabilities. We focus on people who whether it's because of an accident or other reason, after going into the workplace, after maybe in their 20s or 30s, they end up with a life-changing incident that puts them in a wheelchair. These people are part of that passion. They have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have other things to contribute to society, but because of their disability, especially in a developing country like China that doesn't have as much experience, or even the policy-based movements or the facilities to take care of those people. I think that they lack that ability to contribute to their community and to their city. So I think that across the board, we need to provide more support in terms of the channels and platforms that young people can use to participate and share that passion to improve to improve their city and improve their surroundings and their society and solve those problems that they see in front of them. Because sometimes when we're too mired in our daily lives, day-to-day lives as, and I have to say that, you mentioned that what are we doing here for 45岁, which is me. But I think that I still feel very young at heart and I still have that passion. So I want to make sure that I have a way to contribute. And I think everybody feels that way. So I think when you're asking about, young people and how they contribute, I think that's one of the best ways.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with you. The young people have the passion, and the society should give them more opportunities to show what they can do, and they can, after their efforts, the society can be a better society in future. So we still need more policymakers to think about how to promote the young people to join the society in future. And thank you, Josh. And I think the last but not least question is for all of you. And is there a city in your mindset can be called a youth development friendly city? Can you name that city? And what a specific area have those cities excellent in? And another question is, in additionally, which city in China may have the chance or the potentials to be the youth-friendly city in future? Okay, let's start, Josh. Okay.
So I was going to ask, are we talking about cities in China or in the world? I wouldn't say globally or in the United States that I would choose one young city or youth-oriented city, but I would say that a lot of cities in the United States have gone through several phases of being an old city or a youth-oriented city, and it has a lot to do with revitalization. So a lot of government programs look at revitalizing urban centers and giving space. Again, space is important to maybe new ideas, new ventures, new companies, young ideas. So I think that that's one thing that we can look at when we're talking about young cities, is whether they have that ability to rejuvenate themselves. Rejuvenate means to make themselves young again, right? And find that space for young people and young ideas. And in China, I have to say that, because maybe it's the propaganda doing its job, but we recently returned from Chengdu, where we saw the facilities for the university games and the different things that are going on in Chengdu. And I have to say, from my personal experience going around the city, it seems young, vibrant, and forward looking. So I think that Chengdu, in the overall feel and just what's happening there, is a very young and vibrant city. I would also say probably a close second is Changsha. Those are the two cities that I would say are very youthful cities in my mind. China.
Yeah, thank you. And Mr. Feng?
从我自己个人观点来说，我还是
In my opinion, Beijing has the potential to become a youth-friendly city. I've been to many cities in China. Beijing may not be the most suitable city in terms of software and hardware, but Beijing has the chance to become a youth-friendly city. For example, in terms of law and in terms of policy, Beijing is close to policy making and law making, so Beijing has the condition. Secondly, Beijing is being watched the most city. So in international exchange, Beijing has to be a leader or pioneer. Third, in terms of policy delivery, Beijing make the fastest response to government policies. For example, in the community of returned overseas Chinese, we have done a lot. The role we want to play is that in building youth-friendly cities, we want to make efforts, want to have that possibility. I've been to many cities around the world, but I do not know that much about those cities, but I still believe Beijing has condition to become a youth-friendly city. It is true that in Beijing, we see the universities in Beijing are open to visitors, and we see that other universities around China are following suit. The cities, both of them mentioned, I also believe, have the condition to become youth-friendly cities. I believe Beijing and Chengdu have the potential to become youth-friendly cities in terms of openness. Beijing is an open city. Beijing and Chengdu is also an open city. For example, many years ago, Beijing and Chengdu has the panda base, which provides services in English, Korean, and Japanese. And for inclusiveness, and Chengdu is doing very well. On the streets of Chengdu, you see that people dressed in different clothes, and food there is also diverse, and professions. And Beijing, so is Beijing. Beijing is a place of innovation. And Beijing is an inclusive city to different professions. As for innovation, Beijing and Chengdu both have the potential.
You know, Beijing and Chengdu has a lot of universities, so they have more innovative resources, and Beijing probably can even do even better than Chengdu. But I believe these two cities both have a lot of potential. I think Chengdu is full of potential. I think probably hot pot is the most inclusive food. Victor?
So Chengdu is definitely one of the most youth-friendly cities. I agree. But it also depends on what you mean by youth-friendly, because we can look at different aspects, right? For example, we previously did an entrepreneurship report. We found many of the Hong Kong youth have that intention to move to Shenzhen for tech ventures and startups, and so from a career development or from an entrepreneurship kind of perspective, that there is that idea that maybe that's a place that they can unleash talents. The other way you can look at it is education systems. So obviously Hong Kong is sort of renowned for a good education systems, and especially in higher education. Singapore is also known for being good at education and youth development opportunities. So I think it really depends on which exact perspective we are talking about, but it's also about when we Singapore, for example, it is a place in which youth are entitled to a good housing opportunities, because there is a very developed system where the government provides housing support for youth, so that it's no longer a worry like what's happening in Hong Kong, where
people suffer from, sky high housing prices, and in most of mainland China as well. So that's another aspect of youth development. So I think it's hard to pinpoint one particular city that is great at all aspects, but in terms of future development, it's more about learning from different cities and taking the good parts out of it and trying to combine them together, and to me that makes a good city friendly for youth development.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Actually, I agree with you, and the Great Bay Area, and also I think Hangzhou, they also have the potential to be the youth-friendly cities in the future. So thank you to our keynote speakers and our panelists, and thank you for your insightful ideas and opinions. And thank you all participants for your engagements. So we conclude the second segment here, and the time is almost up. So hoping it has a spark deeper reflection for every one of you. Thank you so much.